Hello everyone, Dan here. I'm just doing a pork belly today on our smoker out the back. This Coles pork belly here. And I'm going to do it for about 7 hours on the smoker, making sure that it's, by the end it should be nice and tender, even almost pull apart with a nice crispy crackling on it. I'm just going to start off now by giving it a season quickly. Cut it out, give it a season, have a look at this piece of meat. It should be fairly nice, not a very expensive one or a very large one, but it'll do the job for the Good Friday, for the Easter long weekend that we're having now. So I'll just give this a season, just with some salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, and even score that surface, which it's actually been done by the butcher at the Coles supermarket, so we won't need to worry about that. You can see that that's been scored there. So I'll get this ready, and then I'll get this out onto the smoker. So I'll just start by adding a little bit of salt. Actually, no, I will put some olive oil on that first, just to give it something to adhere to, and I'll salt up the fat cap here, and then I'll add some garlic powder, cracked pepper, and onion powder to the meat side here. I'm not going to waste any of the pepper or garlic powder on the fat cap because it won't absorb in. I just want that little bit of salt on there to give it some crispiness. But a fairly simple process, not too difficult at all. A bit of salt, a bit of pepper, a bit of garlic, and you can't go wrong. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic powder, and just a little bit of cracked pepper. Actually, I might put a fair bit of cracked pepper on there. I thoroughly enjoy cracked pepper. And that there is it. Simple. Yeah, throw a bit of onion powder on there, I forgot that. Not that I really need it, but a little bit won't hurt. And that's it, that's ready for the smoker. I'm not going to do anything else to that. I'm going to simply take that out and put it in the smoker. I'll be back in a minute when I'm ready to do that. Right, so I'm back. I've got this ready, the smoked chimney, the coal chimney. They're going good now, so I'm going to add them to my smoker and get that all good to go and crush that up. That's just a mixture of heat beads and lump charcoal. I put lump charcoal at the bottom because it catches the light a bit easier and then it gets the heat beads going. I'll add a few more just to that now so that can burn a bit longer, and they'll obviously go a bit slower and they'll catch a light and burn into the cooking process. And I'll put my smoker together. These things are really good, easy to put together. And I'll fill the water up, the water bowl. I like to do my pork belly for about 4 hours in here with water, and then I'll take the water bowl out and do it for another 2 to 3 hours. Up the top, the pork belly will sit up here, so it'll crispy it up. So I'll fill that up. The reason we put water in is that'll create steam when you smoke meats. The smoking process can rip a lot of moisture out. With pork belly it doesn't matter so much. It's very fatty cut of meat. So I'll get this all ready. I leave it open as well, just to allow that water to heat up first, and then I'll put the top on. And that should be about enough. That's about 3/4 full, that bowl. So I'll leave this open for the first 5 to 10 minutes, let that water heat up, and then I shall put the lid on, wherever that is over there, on the grass. I'm using cherry wood today, so this pro smoke stuff you get from Barbecues Galore in a barbecue shop. They come in nice good chunks like that. So I'll put 1 or 2 of those in. Some people will soak theirs in water. I don't really worry about it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I find it to be one of those things that it's 6 or half a dozen does the other. I'll add those to it about 5 minutes before I put the pork belly on. There's no point wasting them yet, but I'm just getting rid of any of that residual smoke too from the lump charcoal. Like I said, open that up so that it heats that water up in there and gets that nice and hot and starting to boil and steam. So it'll be steaming as well as smoking. More smoking, but that bit of moisture in the atmosphere just helps, I find, keep the pork belly nice and tender, and actually, like when you're doing a pulled pork, you know, having that steam in there just seems to tenderise it a lot more. We will, like I said, remove that bowl probably about 4 hours in, and then do it for another 2 to 3 hours, depending, with the fat cap facing down up here and those direct heat from those coals hitting it. You've got probably a good 60 centimetres there, or 2 feet away from the actual heat beads and coals. So it's a fair distance away, and it will slowly crackle that over a couple of hours, rather than doing it a rush job of it and trying to put the pork belly right down under the heat beads, where I don't think it's very good. It can burn it, makes it tougher, chewier, and just doesn't give you as good a crackling. So we'll be back in about half an hour with the pork belly. Right, so we're about ready to throw that in. That's now sitting at about 110 degrees Celsius, so or 230 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm happy with that temperature. You won't be able to see the water in there's starting to get some bubbles in it, which I'm happy with. And our heat beads and coals are glowing nicely. I've got all the vents open on this at the moment to let that heat in to just warm that water up. I'll close them to about about half each, and leave one fully open and leave the other two at about halfway when I throw this meat in a minute. This is a Fornetto. I've actually had this for about 3 years now. It's been a really good smoker. The only thing I've probably got against it is that seal has come off on this one. Still here on this bottom one, but it's coming off. It's, yeah, it is what it is, but it's 3 years old, and it's probably had twice a week I've cooked with it, between this and the rotisserie there, which is now starting to rust away. They get a fair bit of use. That's for chickens. This one here I do all other things, lamb, you know, brisket, pork bellies, and all sorts of things in. I've got the pork belly ready to go, so we'll give that about 5 more minutes, and I'll throw that on. I'll just throw my wood chunks in, these cherry chunks, and just throw them on like that. That's what I do. Some people put the coals over them, do different things. They put the chunks towards the vents, and then they layer it and add. But this is 7 hours. I'll add some more heat beads if I need them, and let them do their thing, and just keep monitoring that temperature up there. So I'm going to, this is starting to smoke a bit. You can probably see that smoke coming through there now from that cherry, and that's what we want. So now it's about time to put that pork belly on there. You can see that now, the thickness of that smoke, and that cherry wood, it's actually quite a sweet smoke, like most fruit wood. I usually use cherry or apple for this sort of thing, pork belly. I use hickory for this thing as well. Lamb, beef, mesquite on beef. I really find mesquite's really good for beef. I did a video on smoking cheese. I've actually since then found that mesquite's very good for smoking cheese, actually, if it's quite a strong smoke. Anyway, so as you can see, I've placed that fat cap down onto there. It's actually seared it a little bit. You won't be able to see it, but that's just from the heat of the grill. So now I'll leave that there and let that cook for about 4 hours, and I'll check the temperature every half an hour to an hour or so, but it should. This thing maintains its heat actually really well. I did ribs last night. It's Easter long weekend here, so did some ribs last night, and you know, I don't think I added, over 5 hours I might have added 5 or 6 more heat beads. I didn't really have to add much. It's quite good. So that's now dropped a little bit to 90, but it's raising again because I've had the lid off, so that should get back up to about 110 degrees soon, and I'll leave it at that. But I'm happy if it sits at 90 to 100 actually for the first 5 hours or so, long and slow, because all up I'll cook this for about 7 hours. Originally when I first did my first pork belly, I think I did it for about 3 hours, and it was a bit tough. Pushed it to about 5, and it had tenderised a lot more, and then we did 2 at Christmas time this year actually, and last Christmas I should say, and we did them for 7 hours, 4 hours with the bowl of water, and then 2 hours without. And they were really tender, and they were almost pulled pork. They were that good. So I found through doing a lot of pork bellies that the best method on this, anyway, for me, is to do it like this. So 4 to 5 hours with the water, 2 to 3 hours without the water to crispy that fat cap up on crispy that fat cap. But I'll come back and show you that when it's we're ready to take that bowl of water out. Okay, so I'm going to spritz this. I've got just a bit of tablespoon of soft brown sugar, and a tablespoon and a half of maple syrup, some vinegar, and water and that, just to make up a couple 100 mils of the spritz. Don't have any, unfortunately didn't have any apple cider vinegar left, so I'm just improvising and seeing how this goes. I don't know that pork likes a bit of sweetness, so I'm just going to spritz this. It's been in for about an hour now. And I'll spritz that, get some sweetness into that meat. I'll give you a closer look at that to see how it's going. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. So that's how she's looking right now. An hour and 15 minutes, but we've still got plenty of time. Like I said, I'll just spritz that quickly. And I'll do that probably another 2 or 3 times over the process of the cook, and we shall see how that tastes when it's done. Like I said, just a bit of maple syrup and soft brown sugar and vinegar and water mixed together. So hopefully that adds just a little bit more sweetness and keeps that meat being moist. You can see, I know you probably can't see all too well, that water down the bottom there's just bubbling away slowly. Whenever I put my hand over the vent of the lid, you can feel the humidity coming out. So that's good. Good sign that we're having a nice cooking process going on there. Okay, so this has been on for about 5 hours now, 4.5 hours. 11:30, yeah, 4.5 hours. So I'm going to take that bowl of water out. We'll just have a quick look at that first. That's how that's looking now after 4.5 hours. So there we go. It's probably already ready to eat, but we want to tenderise that a fair bit more, so we'll leave that on there, and we want to crispy that skin up because that skin's not quite crispy yet. So I'll just remove that bowl of water, remove here, and then we'll have that direct heat. So I got my gloves on here. There's actually a fair bit of fats coming out of the meat. Onto that. You probably won't be able to see that, but there's all the oil that's come out of the meat so far into that water. Now we'll just place that back on there, and that will be directly above those coals. So all that heat of those coals will be directly on that fat cap now. And that should start to crackle up. So I'll give that one more spritz before I put the lid back on. And I'll get that lid back on and leave that for another 2 to 3 hours. So it's been about an hour and a half since I took the water bowl out, and if I can lift that up, it's still a little soft, but that's okay. What I can do is take this tray down to the next level, so it's sitting above the heat beads down there. There's not much heat beads left because that's been cooking for about 6.5 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to put this part of the smoker down here and move this to the top, and give that another half an hour to 45 minutes just to crackle that crackling up a little bit more. And then after that we should be right. It's as you can see, quite soft, and there's a fair bit of juice coming out of that, so it should be quite tender. So I'm just going to do that now. I'll come back in half an hour and it should be done. Alright, so that's been cooking now since about 11:30. It's now 6:10 and I've had that without the bowl since 4 o'clock, so it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'll just have a look. It's starting to look really nice actually. Nice and soft and plump. So just have a look at this fat cap. It's starting to crispy up nice. Definitely hard to tap, but not crackled up quite as well as I want it yet. So I can leave that for another half an hour at this height, or I can reduce it down to just here above the coals. I might give it another half an hour there and see how we look. If I need to, what I'll do is I'll take it down for about 5 minutes just above the coals, but it's starting to come along really well, and you can just feel that, how tender that's becoming. But I think it's going to taste rather nice. I've been spritzing it for about every half an hour, just giving it a spray with that brown sugar maple syrup mixture that I made up with the vinegar in it. And you can taste a bit of sweetness on the meat now. So I'll give that another half an hour. Let that crispy up. That fat's rendered down nicely. And that should taste really nice. I'll give that 30 more minutes. So I'm going to finish this off. Been about half an hour more. It's still just a little bit, it hasn't crackled quite how I want it to, so that's all right. I'll just finish this off down right above the coals by taking this grill off and placing it straight there. So I'll just take this off. And you don't want to touch these things, they're very hot. I'll place that right there above those coals. Now I'm going to have to watch this now very carefully. I don't really want it to burn, so I'll spend the next 5 minutes or so just making sure this isn't burning, rotating it around and getting it to crackle up a little bit more, just to pop that fat like a good crackling. It's hard on the base, hasn't quite cracked like I want it to, so that's all right. Shouldn't take too long doing like this. You can see there that it's right above those coals, so that should only take about 5, maybe 10 minutes tops before that's crackled up. Yeah, so we've been literally probably about 3 minutes since I said I'd leave it for 5, and you can see that now starting to crackle quite a bit. So I'm just continually turning that to make sure I don't burn it in one spot. It's coming up quite nicely. I'll give it another couple of minutes. I said you've just got to watch it, just stay with it, don't walk away. That way you'll get that nice crispy fat cap like I'm starting to get there now. I can lift it up in a corner just to give a bit more direct heat to say the ends, and that'll crispy that up nicely as well. I haven't had it directly above the coals, I've had it just to the side, or just off sort of to where the heat isn't as strong, and that should, that has been crispying it up quite nicely. So I'll come back in a couple of minutes when I get that off, and we'll go and let that rest for half an hour or so, and we'll see how it is. Right, so we're ready to take this off. It's looking pretty good actually. Over there. Oh, now the light's not the best out here, but that's probably 5 or 6 minutes that I just had that directly above the coals there. So I'm going to take that inside, let that rest, give it half an hour or so, and you can see that's still crackling on the top. Well, maybe not under the light, but it's still slightly crackling. But we'll take that inside, let that rest for half an hour, and then we'll give it a nice cut and see how it looks. Okay, so that's been resting for about 20 minutes. I lost patience, I wasn't going to leave it half an hour. But that's nice and crackled on the top, as you can see. And I'll give that a cut. We'll see how tender that is. Whew. There we go. Nice and cut through there. And there we go. Look at that. Nice and tender. Pull apart. You can see, I don't know how, if the camera's giving that justice or not, but that's beautifully tender. Nice and soft. You can see the fat coming out of that. That's showing it all, the juices. But that is going to be very nice, I think. Slicing very nicely. The crackling has crackled all the way through, if you can see that. It's over a few hours of cooking, of course, so it's come up quite nicely. I'm happy with that. The main taste tester right here, right now. I was going to cut the video away, but I just thought I'd see what my wife thinks. She's 9 months pregnant, so if she says it's good, that's good.
Very good.
Is it? Mm. Is it tender?
Very tender.
Does it pull apart?
Yeah.
Looks like it's falling apart.
Mm-hmm. That crunch.
So if she's happy, I'm happy. All right, guys, until next time, this is Dan, out.